Hello, everyone. I'm Luke.
And I'm Dylan.
We're representing Choate Rosemary Hall this year at the 2023 Critical Issues Forum, and we were guided by James Davidson. So, our presentation is titled Looking Forward, Modern Perspectives on Non-Proliferation Efforts.
We'd like to open our presentation with a quote from Roger Fisher, the professor of law at Harvard University. This quote comes from an interview where he answered a question about limiting the accessibility of the president to the nuclear codes. The quote goes, "My suggestion was quite simple. Put that needed code number in a little capsule and then implant that capsule right next to the heart of a volunteer. The volunteer would carry with him a big, heavy butcher knife as he accompanied the president. If ever the president wanted to fire nuclear weapons, the only way he would do so would be for him first, with his own hands, to kill one human being. The president says, 'George, I'm sorry, but tens of millions must die.' He has to look at someone and realize what death is, what an innocent death is. Blood on the White House carpet. It's reality brought home." He also said, "When I suggested this to my friends in the Pentagon, they said, 'My God, that's terrible. Having to kill someone would distort the president's judgment. He might never push the button.'"
So, although this suggestion is obviously unrealistic for a number of reasons, it represents a very important sentiment that we want to echo in our presentation today, which is that the threat of nuclear war is absolutely intolerable and must be confronted head on in discussion.
However, today, the threat of nuclear war is used as a method of diplomacy in the notion of deterrence through mutually assured destruction. We would like to argue, however, that this threat is today unacceptable because of modern developments in three key areas: in developing technologies, evolving leadership, and rising global tensions.
So, first, modern advancements in technology. So, today, quantum computers and their potential implications are beginning to take the world by storm. It's estimated by the National Security Agency that in a 5 to 10 year time frame, quantum computing will be able to shatter all widely employed cryptography algorithms. Obviously, this poses an immense threat to international security and threat detection, as well as the security of the activation of nuclear bombs. Simultaneously, we're making immense improvements in nuclear fusion. Now, though this provides a hopeful future for clean energy, with each discovery we make, it also brings the possibility of the next generation of nuclear weapons closer to us.
The next threat is one of demographics. This first graph is a projected US World War II veteran population by the Pew Research Center. This shows how the living number of people that have experience in World War II, have experience in a conflict the size of World War II, is rapidly decreasing and will soon reach zero. This shows that less and less people understand the scale of destruction that comes with war and nuclear war in specific. Another one is the veteran representation in Congress, also by Pew Research Center. As you can see, it's also rapidly decreasing. Both of these show how, in the past, our leaders and our population understood the consequences of nuclear war and war in general that we simply do not. Finally, we have growing international tensions. First of all, there's a widespread increase in nationalist sentiments, which directly reduces our ability to cooperate globally. We see this in Germany, in Spain, in America, in Italy, and even in China with Xi Jinping promoting a narrative of national rejuvenation. Specifically with China, the tensions in the Taiwan Strait, and with both countries increasing their military spending in this area, it shows that we are becoming closer and closer to a more tense environment that is conducive to nuclear war. Finally, we have the Ukraine-Russia conflict, which was the biggest land conflict in Europe since World War II. All of these factors show that although in the past, nuclear deterrence might have been an effective strategy, that is less and less the case.
And so, if you still think that the argument that has held up the use of nuclear weapons for the last 60 to 70 years, of them being deterrents from greater conflict, holds up, here are some facts to show us where we really are in the timeline to nuclear Armageddon. So, first of all, there are currently 13,000 active nuclear warheads today. This is enough to destroy the world and all major populations several times over. Now, the timeline to nuclear Armageddon is a statistic made by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists every year. And so they represent our proximity to nuclear annihilation on a clock where midnight represents total annihilation. This year, we were placed at 90 seconds to midnight, which is a record low. And this number has been falling for the last couple decades due to new developments, continuous nuclear tests. And this year, What pushed us from 100 to 90 was the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, more recently, this is an image shared by the North Korean government, and it was just 2 days ago, on April 13th, that they tested another delivery system for a nuclear warhead. So it's very clear that today we're playing a different game than we were 60 years ago. And the 20th century doctrine of mutually assured destruction is becoming the 21st century fact of mutually assured extinction. Now, where do we go from here? Well, let's look back on some previous non-proliferation efforts to see what worked and what didn't.
So the NPT, which is many of you know, the preeminent nuclear non-proliferation treaty, has several flaws. The first of which is its deadlines or lack thereof. This treaty does not have any deadlines, giving countries the opportunity to drag their feet in reducing their arsenal and maintains the threat of nuclear war higher than it should be.
The second main issue with the NPT is that 4 of the 9 nuclear powers are not involved in it. And so what this means is that other countries, the 186 other non-nuclear powers, typically smaller countries that sign the NPT, are incentivized more to produce or pursue a nuclear arsenal since they can feel unsafe that these powers are unregulated. So here's an example of previous unilateral non-proliferation, which was the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in Iran in 2015. This was where China, Russia, Germany, France, Britain, and America helped Iran reach an agreement with the US where they would decrease their uranium production in exchange for the US lifting economic sanctions. However, in 2018, the evidence reached the president that Iran had actually continued enriching uranium. And so as a result, President Trump reinstituted the economic sanctions, raising tensions overall and in fact increasing the threat. So this is often reflected on as a bit of a failure of a non-proliferation effort. On the other hand, this is an example of cooperative non-proliferation. So these are Senators Nunn and Lugar exiting the White House as they briefed the president on the Cooperative Threat Reduction Act of 1991. So the CTR was an act where the US pledged aid to Russia to dismantle their nuclear weapons after the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. Through the CTR, 7,500 nuclear warheads were deactivated, 2,000 ICBMs were destroyed, and 3 classes of nuclear weapons delivery systems were banned, and employment was provided for the nuclear scientists that developed these weapons that were not always working under their own volition.
Another example of effective cooperative non-proliferation comes from this photo of footage from a skirmish between India and China on their conflict. This is a long-running border skirmish or border conflict, and it demonstrates how, as you may be able to see, these countries have actually not only non-proliferated from, both of them have nuclear weapons, but they're not using them. Not only have they non-proliferated from nuclear weapons, but also from live weapons entirely. They are using practically sticks and stones to fight. This is an example about how 2 opposing sides can non-proliferate to reduce the entire toll of conflict on their population.
So with these factors in mind, what would taking the first step look like? So here are some idealistic pieces that would have to be critical to a new non-proliferation treaty. So obviously, it would have to include all 9 nuclear powers. This means India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, who are the 4 who have not previously signed, would need to be pressured into signing through by the other 9 countries through economic or political pressuring systems. Another interesting piece of this could be the US leading by example as the leading nuclear power in the world, from scaling back their nuclear arsenal from thousands to hundreds. Of course, this treaty, unlike the NPT, would have to have a measurable and enforceable deadline where countries could share progress updates, so there was no excuse for countries to drag their feet in these efforts. And by having all 9 nuclear powers in on this treaty, hopefully the smaller non-nuclear countries would have less of an incentive to pursue a nuclear arsenal, and we would not end up with another North Korea-like situation.
Of course, these steps and such broad cooperation between countries must be accompanied by stronger international cooperation overall. We need to reduce the tensions that are currently growing in the international world, and this can only happen if we have unified domestic cooperation within countries. In America, we often feel that The polarization in the chaotic situation here leads to a lack of being able to produce effective international policy. So if we want to get our international orders in affair first, we need to get our domestic orders in affair.
Simultaneously, we must address this issue head on with modern regulation. Now, this could mean, or modern legislation. This could mean funding for the future of cybersecurity to protect the activation of weapons in general, as well as regulation of future nuclear research to limit the possibility of the next generation of weapons of mass destruction being developed. So in conclusion, although this presentation isn't designed to give a precise step-by-step plan on how to reach world non-proliferation, we hope to have recontextualized some of the new political and scientific additions to the problem of non-proliferation.
And only by viewing the problem of non-proliferation through a modern lens and by taking swift and precise action will we be able to reach a world where the fate of millions will not be decided by one and where the floors of the White House will remain unstained, metaphorically or literally.
Thank you.